What's cracking? Welcome. I'm Chris and we're here with another printer review with the Anycubic Kobra S1. Today we're doing something different and we're calling it the shit show. It's got nothing to do with the printer. You heard it first. We're doing it the shit show, and that is uncensored, unfiltered and unedited just for you guys at home so you can find out the raw, honest truth if this 3D printer or other 3D printers is going to be right for you. So stick around. We'll go through it together right now. All right, so here we are, guys. We're back, and yep, you heard it first. It's the shit show. We're doing it raw, unfiltered, and uncensored, so let's do this. So basically, the Anycubic Kobra S1, it's a Core XY printer. Is it good, is it bad? Well, we're about to find out. I've had this printer now for about, let's say 4 weeks. Yeah, I've been a bit absent. There's a few reasons to that. But apart from that, I've had it for 4 weeks, and I've had plenty of time to test it. And that's a good thing because most people who do a lot of reviews tend to get the product and throw it on the test bench, run a few prints, do a few tests, blah, 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 and palm it off and let's do a video. So good thing is I've found a lot of good things about this that no one's talked about and a few bad things which they don't break the sale, but they could be improved. So to start off with, let's get the nuts and bolts out of the way. Like I said, no editing, we're hitting the raw today, so we'll get the basic specs out of the way. We're looking at a Core XY printer with linear rods. They will need to be greased when you get them. Straight out of the box, you get your standard equipment. You get a rear filament spool holder. You get your manual. Okay. You also get your safety instructions on the back there with the yellow card, and that's basically to ensure that you unpack it correctly. There are, I think I counted, don't quote me on this, 7 or 8 screws at the base of the printer. You need to make sure you go through and unscrew all of those before you even turn the printer on. There is 2 screws at the back that aren't not marked with the orange arrow. You need to make sure you unscrew those as well. There is a plastic injected molded platform that needs to be removed. It comes shipped very well packaged, which is good. And I do like the idea of the way they've implemented such a heavy duty extrusion molded piece to actually keep the bed stable and locked in place for shipping. I'll give credit to Anycubic on that one. All right, there she is. Completely knackered, getting out of the box. There it is. There's the box. Peel that off out of the way. That's it. I got out of the box. I'm stuffed. We'll do it next week. See ya. So on top of what else you get, if you do get the combo or if you get the standard unit, you will get the things like, what do we got here? You've got your nozzle probe. They now put it in a safety, like a needle enclosure, which is good because a lot of them are sharp and they usually just put them in foam and in a plastic bag. I personally don't use these. I find them a bit useless, but each their own. And on top of that, you get your lubrication for your linear rods, so that's a good thing. And that's pretty much basically it. You also get the USB stick as well, which comes with stock firmware and the Anycubic slicer, which we'll go through and talk about that as well. And you get some test models on there as well, in both English and Chinese or Mandarin. You can go through and try those models out as well, which are quite handy. I've printed some of the models as well. I've also printed a couple of multicolored models. I've done the AnyDesk stress test as well to check overhang performance and bridge performance and small detail performance. I've also done some PETG printing and some ABS fine detail printing to see how we go. So we'll pan through and go through that as we go along. And we'll also go through the user interface with the touchscreen element as well. As far as the printer is concerned, like I said, it's a Core XY printer. It has a linear rod carriage on there with a standard 4.0 nozzle with a standard stainless steel heating block for the nozzle. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with a ceramic quick swap or even just a ceramic hot end. That said, it is adequate, although the flow rate isn't that great as far as Core XY printers of today, 2025, coming in at around 17 to 18 millimeters squared, so as in flow rate. Other than that, outside of that, you get your PEI Flexi textured build plate, which is 2-sided, which is handy. If you scratch one side, you can flip it over. What else? You've got your cable chain on the top, which we'll pan around and have a look at in a moment. You also get the rear mounted, which I'll pop a photo on the screen, Don't want to do too much editing. Like I said, I want to get this raw. We'll pan around and have a look at it. Got our mounting system for our PDF tube, which runs through the back as well. And also printed a flex mount for the poop chute, as this is a multicolor compatible printer. As you can see, I have the AMS unit, which is the ACE Pro, which is the updated version of the original version 1 ACE unit that it had. And they've updated that, and we'll talk about that as well and what they've done to improve that. Whether or not I think it's been improved totally and what can be applied. Hint, I have actually printed some upgrades for it, so that gives that one away a little bit as well. As far as a printer, relatively, usually it does have the motherboard mounted on the bottom for most Core XY printers. This one, the main board is actually quite smaller, and it's mounted underneath the side extrusion mount of the wall panel. Quick access to get to that. And we'll pan around and I'll talk about things as we go around and go through the particulars of the machine. As far as the specs are concerned, like I said to you before, it's a 250 by 250 by 250 square cube build plate and build volume, which is neither here or there. It's about medium sized as within the Core XY fields. It comes in retail price. I think they've got a sale on right now at around $989 AUD. I'm not sure exactly what the USD is, but I'll, work that out from there. They do have some sales going on now with the end of financial year clearance on, so you can pick up some great deals there. Check the item description down below as well on this video, because I'll probably have a promo link and possibly a unique discount code for people who watch this video. I'll have my own Chris's Creations discount code, so you can use that if you like to get yourself extra few bucks off this combo or the printer itself on its own. Getting out of the way also, I'd like to thank Taylor from Anycubic. They did send this out to me free of charge, with no paperwork, no obligation, no formal agreement, no instructions on the actual filming process or the editing process or what they required of me or if they wanted anything. I'm the type of person, people who know me and watch this channel in the past and other videos, I don't do sponsorship videos, as I feel even if you're an affiliate, I don't feel as if, they're accurate, because I tend to think that a lot of companies, and I know from being approached myself by other not said brands in the 3D printing industry, well-known brands, I call them the top 5, and they have instructed me in the past, if I've wanted to work with them, that I needed to meet a set criteria. So today, and like every other day, we will not be doing that. This is provided to me, like I said, free of charge, but there is no pressure or no written information for me to document or say anything particular, so therefore I won't be, and nor would I be if they requested it. So moving on from that said, where do we start? So like I said, we've got a recommended printing speed of 300. It has a top out speed of 600 millimeters a second. I would definitely not recommend that unless you're printing a cube. That said, it does have an acceleration of 20,000 on the acceleration as well, millimeters squared. Now, that said, 20,000 is generally, basically it's the, standard speed now. When you go into the slicer, most of them you'll find the travel and the normal printing speed will be around 12,000. This one here, it comes in around 10,000, so it's a little bit dialed back from that, and we'll go into the reasons as to why very soon. Package dimensions, it comes in at 25 kilos, packaged in 20.2 kilos, so it's a solid unit. Not that heavy, so they've dialed it back, as in not as much aluminium extrusion and metal plating, which is neither here or there, but it is a very solid machine. I do like the front user face and the top panel. They've used an injected molded plastic tinted, which is good. They've gone away from the glass, which I like. Glass is good and it's sleek, but it's not very robust, so that's a good thing. It's got a metal back plate and a metal undercarriage, which is open, so you can adjust the belt pulley on the tension spring, which is a good idea. I like that idea as well. And a nice clean interface. Some people would say it's a P1S or X1 carbon knockoff. I don't think so. I think, to be honest, it's like anything, even in the automotive industry or the motorcycle industry, one company makes a product and another company comes along, uses their ideas and comes up with their own product. If you want to call that a knockoff, well, you basically call every company in the industry a knockoff, which I don't think is right. So, hats off to them, but I think this is a unique machine itself. Honestly, it doesn't perform anywhere close to, when I say perform, it doesn't perform anywhere close to Bamboo Labs. I wouldn't say in performance or printing quality, I would say it performs differently. So, completely separate machines. So just get that out of the way. So moving on from there, we'll pan around and we'll go through a few things. If you do get the combo unit, you will get some extra features. You'll get a changeover chain link modifier for the metal chain cable mounting sheet for that. You'll also get a what they call a buffer hub, which is basically to convert it from a single PDF air tube into a 4-hub PDF air tube system, which goes into the back of the AMS AC unit. So we'll go through that, and I'll show you that as we pan through. It does support up to 8-color multicolor printing, so you can stack a secondary ACE unit to this single ACE unit, which does 4 spools. It does print PLA, Pro and Plus, obviously, PETG, ABS, ASA, PC nylon. It's got a max bed temperature of 120 degrees Celsius and a max hot end temperature of 320 or 10, pretty sure, 320. And it does have nozzles from 0.2 right up to 0.8 millimeters, which is good. At the time of this recording, I have noticed that, and I have ordered one, so I'll be doing this upgrade as well, ceramic hot ends. So I've ordered those in 0.2 and 0.4. So I will be looking at testing the standard stainless block type nozzle that's in this S1 Kobra and performing a ceramic nozzle upgrade and checking to see what the flow rate increases in that as well. So that'll be an interesting one. It'll probably be a short video on that one. So that could be a possible good upgrade. We do have activated rear exhaust, so we have a beanbag style carbon filter which goes in the rear of the printer with a case clip over it with an extrusion exhaust fan at the back, which it's not as good as a HEPA filter, but it's substantial. Obviously, if you're printing with those materials, you want to make sure that you're not printing in an environment where there's no airflow, no fans, because it can be quite toxic. Personally, myself, a couple of weeks back, I got a bit sick. I didn't have the fans on or the split system on, didn't have any windows open. I was printing some ABS and had it filtered, and I was sitting there on my computer working away. A couple of hours went by and started to feel nauseous and headaches, and realized I just got some gas air poisoning from the filament, so that wasn't very good. So lesson learnt. Even us people that have been doing this for many years get caught out every once in a while. So that said, also you get a 1080p camera built in, which is great. The video quality surprisingly works quite well. Even in the slicer and using the app, there's also an app you can use, Anycubic Next platform. That works quite well. I was surprised with that. If you were to compare it to the Bamboo and the Creality Cloud and so forth, it's right up there. So it's really well with that. The touchscreen interface is running Kobra OS. It is Clipper based, but just like certain software out there in other electronic realms, it is an overskin of Clipper. So although it does use Clipper, if you click on your slicer software, it's not natively Clipper within raw Clipper. So for instance, if you wanted to use Orca Slicer, you'd have to use an Orca Slicer, a Kobra S1 fork firmware, which I know there's one or two out there at this time of filming, but that said, it's still a beta platform, and honestly, I've tested it out and I wasn't totally happy with it. It still has a few bugs, so that's that. If you do use Orca Slicer or Prusa Slicer or any other slicer, you do have the option, you've got a USB mount on the side, so you can transfer your files USB. Obviously, it's a bit of a disappointment that it's not a rooted or root access printer, being that it's open source Clipper, so you can't just use Fluid or Mainsail remotely from a web port or web address straight out of the box. But that said, like I said, they have Anycubic Next, which is an updated version of the original slicer, which is basically a fork of Orca Slicer. I haven't found it to be as good as Orca Slicer. It has a few tweaks that I probably would remove and change. You know, that'll be a video I do after this where I go through the comparisons of the slicers, just for people who want to know the difference between those slicers, to see what the comparison and what the changes are that they've put in to basically work what they think is better for their machine. But we'll go into that as well. As far as external and top cover, so it says that it has spaghetti recognition in the ACE filament case, and also has a top cover as well, which was removable. I injection molded this little clip that you see here. I printed this out of ABS. You can print it out of PLA, but I just chose to do ABS because I'll probably do some regular temp printing. I'll put a link into the description below. That's on the Anycubic Maker Online platform, so you to download. Pretty straightforward, but it does work quite well. Otherwise, there's no riser or hinge plate for that to sit on. It just comes on and off. If you're printing PLA, you want to make sure that's off, obviously, and obviously with your high temp filaments, you want to have that on. Apart from that, you've got your front mounted LED lights, which will pan around and have a look, and you've got your injected molded door, which I find quite well. It's nice and rigid. And that said, so what I think we'll do now, we'll just go through here. They also have some filaments you can use that I recommend. I don't, at this stage, recommend cardboard spools in this, but I'll talk about that in a minute. There's probably a few other things I've missed, but we'll go through that very soon. So what we'll do is we'll pan around now. I'm not going to chop or anything in it. I'll just grab the camera and we'll go through it and walk around, and we'll have a chat and see what we think. All right, so looking at some of these prints that I've done, this is the overhang print test. So the first one I did 2 of them. So we'll go through all the prints and we'll have a look, and then we'll go through the units themselves. So the overhang test I did with Anycubic's PLA Plus, and I did it with the standard Anycubic profile. See there. Now, it's hard to tell on camera, but basically it came out a bit rough, but the details aren't the best. I dare say, now obviously not many people use default profiles and slices. If you do and it works for you, that's great, but I don't, because I find that a lot of the time they don't suit the filaments that they proposedly use, and you have imperfections like little lines here and things like that. Now this is just a stress test. It's an overhang test, but it also has a lot of details on it for bridging and cylindrical and detail. You can see the detail's not the greatest. In some parts it sort of really struggles. Bridge-wise, it bridged quite well. The overhang test, to try and get on that, there's a little bit of overhang there. It did struggle when it got above, say, 65 degrees, and there's quite a lot of overhang noise there. A bit of string. Yeah, that's a better picture. So you can see there as well. So it did struggle. And that was at the standard profile speeds too, so it wasn't slowed when printing that degree of overhang. But not too bad for a stock profile, so that's that. I did find that when I rejigged the profiles, I did my own profile, and I did get slight improvement. It's hard to tell from this camera angle, very difficult to tell, but you can automatically see that even the cylindrical components, they're a lot cleaner. The writing through here isn't the best on both of them, but I was able to clean up the details on a lot of the aspects just by tuning the profile and the slicer. The other thing to that is obviously that's using the Anycubic Next slicer, so I haven't tested it using the Orca slicer yet, but it's not too bad. You know, I'd give it probably about a 7.5 to 8, so it's not too bad at all. Moving on from that, I did a multicolor dragon, which, keep in mind, I used a filament, an Anycubic filament that was actually about 5 years old. So I've gone through the process of trying to use up my old filament. It was very, very brittle. And I did have a bit of stringing, but apart from that, it came out relatively well. I didn't have any areas where it was a locked joint. I didn't have any areas where there was any sticking, or everything just popped off the build plate, and it relatively was quite well. The wings even move, which is a plus. Just getting to sit his head up. These flexi prints can be a bit of a pain. So yeah, it printed quite well, so you can see that it all moves. So that was just a 0.2 profile, so I was pretty happy with that. There is some imperfections, but nothing that most people would cry home about. So there's that one there. So it's pretty good. Pretty happy with that one. A little bit of, you know, colour bleed there in the eyes. Can't do much about that. Not with a small eye sort of section like that. As far as tolerances go, I printed these. This was the first one, which in my opinion was a real fail. So that was a tolerance print. Try and get a bit of, there we go. And you can see this one moves a lot freely, and the rest are not moving at all. So they're completely locked in. So as you can see at the bottom, you can see it's that one slightly, and the rest are locked up. So I decided to print it again with my profile. So, and I got a little bit better of a result. I was able to get 0.3, which is the same as the other moving, but I then got 0.25 as well. And I got 0.2. It's literally, it's hard to tell on the camera, but I got 0.2, but it's just stuck on 1 point where I just don't want to move it in case it broke. So I did get an extra 1.5 on the mill on tolerance of that. I then went and printed another tolerance one, which is the hinge test. So for those people who are going to be printing, you know, practical parts or, you know, movable parts, components, from 0.5 right down to, 0.45 right down to 0.1, and all of them, except for the 2 is, oh, there we go, the 2 is moving. So all of them move without any problem, except for the 0.01, 0.5, and 0.1. So probably get that one to move a little bit, but the rest of them move quite well. So that was pretty good. Layer consistency was pretty good on that one as well. So I was pretty happy with that. I then wanted to push the boundaries a bit. So I'm working on an upgrade. I'll put the links in below in the next video where I'll be doing a video on the ACE unit. We'll go through why in a minute. I did this back basket for the poop chute, and that was the stock profile. Got a little bit of poop fell out then, which is great. So yeah, so that turned out quite well. I used my profile on this one because I wanted better bridging for the handle, and I was quite happy with that. As you can see, that came out quite well as well. So that was out of PET G. That one took about 4 hours. Now, I will say with this printer, it is a little bit slower than other Core XY multicolor printers, and I think that's got to do with acceleration and the print head itself being a stainless block system rather than a ceramic head for the hot end. And I then pushed it a little bit. I wanted to print these PET G inserts, which end up replacing these inserts in here. And I'll explain to you why very soon. But basically, I wanted to push the limits to see how much I could get over 0.4 nozzle and how much this printer would print the detail in. And I was quietly surprised at how well it printed that in a 0.4. Even the overhang on the clips was surprisingly very, very good. I couldn't really fault that at all. It actually came out better than some of my other brand name unsaid printers that cost 3 times more. So yeah, that's something to be said. So I was quite happy with the PET G on that. Really nice finish too. Really nice finish. So pretty happy with that. 4 of those. I then went on to print rollers in ABS. No issues at all. I mean, I have to admit, there is some problems with the bed, and I'll go through it in a minute. But as far as adhesion goes and temperatures, I didn't change any of these temperatures. I do have to tweak a little bit of the ironing on top, but apart from that, I had straight up cylindrical prints with no adhesion problems whatsoever. No Z offset problems like the original Anycubic Kobra 3. No problems there at all. So I did have a Kobra 3 with an ACE, and I had a lot of trouble with it, whereas this unit, I have to admit, I've had no Z offset issues and no knocking or anything like that. So that's been a positive. Then went and printed this as well out of ABS. Oh, sorry, no, PET G. This is black PET G, Anycubic black PET G, and that printed very well. And that's a prop for the ACE unit, so that holds the lid up in place. So basically what I've done is I've mainly printed, I've stuck to the principles of the printing for the calibration and the testing with the overhang, hinge testing, bridge testing, tolerance testing, and then gone into PET G, ABS, and some ASA. So just to check how well it prints those. So that's pretty much that. I will say for the first layer, I don't know if it's just my printer or not, but I do have some issues with the first layer. You can see there. Now, this is only half a build plate. So I chopped the build plate to do a first layer print, and chopped it in half because the first one I tried, it was actually, the bed is so far out of alignment that it was actually scraping the bed coming back this way. As you can see, it started to here, but it really got really bad towards this back left-hand side. So that's something that I'll have to probably look at, maybe possibly doing a shim, raising the front right corner up so that it levels out with the back left and back section, and then re-level the whole bed so it applies a Z offset. That's one of the other things it doesn't have, is it doesn't have the ability to change the Z offset on the fly during prints. With the Kobra OS software for the S1, you cannot adjust the settings for the Z offset once you start printing. You have to adjust it manually in your slicer, which I think is a bit of a pain that they left that out. You were able to do it with the Kobra, sorry, the Anycubic Kobra 3. The S1, not so much. So that's that. I think that's pretty much basically it for that. So let's go through the Ace combo and the printer itself. We'll scan through, see how we go with that. So we'll just pan back out and we'll get back in a position and we'll talk through that together as well. Like I said, honesty, raw, little editing as possible so I can give you the right information. If you don't like it, that's bad luck on you. But this is how we're doing it today. I wanted to do something different to give a raw, honest opinion. Like I said, uncensored, unfiltered. So like I said, I printed this latch, press that on there, and that just pops up like that. I do like this one. Nice and simple, locks it in place nice and sturdy. The door itself is really good. I like it. It's very rigid. It's got a bit of flex to it, which is great. Nice and stiff as well. Hinges are great, works quite well. Like that. It does have a nice inlay there to protect the door hinge, which is good as well. Makes for a nice sealant, especially when you're printing high temp filaments. It runs off the bed itself. Like I said, it's a PE flex plate, double-sided. It does have your magnetic build plate. The only thing is, it's got an aluminium plate built in underneath this with a molded, extrusion molded build plate support plate. So that's neither here or there. That might be one of the reasons why the build plate for my printer specifically is a little bit higher from, say, this section onwards. So I'll have to put a buffer spacer there, hopefully not too much. It's got the linear rods as well as the linear rods for the carriage, linear rods for the bed, running off 2 side-mounted linear rods and 3 lead screws. So you've got your left and right and your back single lead screw. And at the back there, you can see a little latch there, so you can put it comes with a beanbag style Hessian sort of material with carbon in it, so you pop that in the back there. As far as noise goes, the printer is relatively quiet, coming in around 44 decibels. If you compare that to the really noisy FL Suns, they're running at around 70, 65. So it's relatively quiet. Most of the noise comes from when this head extrusion and the head goes back towards the poop chute and cuts the filament. It makes a bit of a banging sound, a blocking sound. So hopefully they can improve that with firmware. The screen itself, I have to admit, just making sure that the camera's on the screen. Yep. So the screen itself is very, very good. I'm going to zoom in, guys, so just bear with me a second. And we'll zoom in on the screen. Like I said, I'm not editing today. This is just coming to you raw. So bear with me. All right, so we're going to zoom in on that. Okay. So the screen itself is very, probably one of the best screens, to be perfectly honest, I've used. It's still actually got the plastic tab on it. And I'm not actually planning on taking that off. And the reason why is because it's just a really good, like, sensitivity. Like, the screen itself, this screen, hats off to Anycubic, the screen interface is one of the best touch screens that I've used. I mean, and I've got other printers, you know, the Bamboos and the Creality K1s and all this sort of stuff, and FlashForge, and I'll give it to them. This screen is so just the slightest touch. It's just, I'll be honest, it's probably the best screen I've actually ever used on a Core XY printer or touchscreen interface. Software is not quite up to par with the features that are involved in it, but as far as the feel of the screen is very intuitive, and the sensitivity is bang on. As you can see, you've got your print options there. You can start printing, and it can load, you know, from your USB on the side there. You've got your video for your time lapses, history, your local. Then go back into the filament spools. You've got your holder. If you don't get the one with the Ace or the Multicolor Ace Pro, you've got the single extrusion holder. It'll detect that. So if I press on that, it'll say it doesn't have it because it has an Ace connected to the back of the printer. If you've got a secondary Ace unit, you can click on that as well. Each one you can go into. They have increased the color band, so you can go into clicking the material type, press OK, check your colors, change your colors, and away you go. Before, I think with the Kobra 3s, it only had about 6 colors, and they've increased that, which is a good, you know, I mean, neither here or there, but it does help if you can sort of get, you know, when you come back to the screen, you can sort of see what color you got loaded in there. One of the other things too with the filament hub or the Ace unit itself is it is a drying hub, so it does dry the filament. You can dry it whilst you're printing, as well as prior and afterwards, and you can use that just by engaging the dryer Anyway, you've got that. One of the things is with the temperature, it only goes to a maximum of 55 degrees. So it does allow you to record 60 and 60 so on, but it only goes to a max of 55. So, you know, that's obviously something to do with the firmware or the tolerances of the material that's made in the filament unit itself. So I'm just going to pan out so we can see that as well. And we'll just pan out so you can see that while I'm using it. So that's that there. I'm just going to pop this up while this is on. Like I said before, printed this so that holds that in place. Pop that on, and that just holds that up in place like that. So that's quite handy as well. Like I said, bit of noise, but not too bad. You've also got your controls here as well. So you've got your control movement, so you can adjust your bed temperature, your chamber fan. You know, one thing with the chamber fan is the side mounted fan. I'm not a huge fan of them unless you've got fans on both sides, because what happens is you get a cross flow of air coming through to assist the nozzle to cool the filament down to increase printing speeds and quality. But what happens with some filament is you end up getting the cooling pushing from one side, and that creates some overhang issues as far as not adhering properly because it pushes it off to one side. And sometimes you get, especially with silk filaments, you'll get some stringing and it'll be pushing to one side because it's cooling one side faster than the other. So that can be an issue too. The auxiliary fan itself, compared to some of the other branded Core XY printers, isn't as strong as they are. I would probably put it, if you compare it to FlashForge, the 5M Pro, the Creality K series, the P1P Bamboo series printers in the Core XYs, the auxiliary fan in the side is probably about 70% at their maximum as opposed to them. So them at 100%, this is probably, you know, this is probably 30% as powerful. So not quite as powerful as the other branded auxiliary fans, but it is a lot quieter, so I'll give them that. Then you've got your model fan as well, which is also running the same size fans as the K series and Bamboo printers as well. Cools quite well. The chamber alignment with the PTFE tubing in the top is quite good as well. There's no issues with filament feeding through the PTFE tube, which is good. So I notice sometimes you get some filament feeding issues, but the way it's designed, it works quite well. You do have your calibrations, which you need to go through when you first start turning the printer on. You've got your input shaping, auto level, nozzle calibration, and your hotbed calibration as well. Or you can do the full calibration, and then you've got your settings. So you can go in and set your ink standard up. You've got your print adjustments, LED on and off, filament detection, sound, and so forth. And then you've got your information. So you can go back through that. So that's pretty much the screen interface built in. What we'll do now is we'll pop it off the tripod and we'll get a closer look so we can see what we're looking at. Zoom out again. So that's what we're looking at right there. You can see the poop chutes at the back. 250 by 250 by 250. There's our screen. Now, as far as the actual ACE multicolor hub unit, as you can see, there's a bit of a tangle here. There's some loose filament here, a bit loose on the side there as well. It doesn't like the cardboard spools. As you can see, I've had to put clips on the spools. I know a lot of units are like that, but what I've done is I've printed these ABS spools, and I'm going to replace the spools in the back of the unit so that it has a bit more traction on the spool, increasing the tension of the filament as it rolls back. And then I'm actually going to put these new clips in, and what they'll enable me to do is remove this top section here, pop these ones out, put these ones in, and I'm going to be able to run some PTFE tube up with a cap on it so that it's more fed over the spool and then retracts better, so you don't end up getting all this spaghettiness happening in your spool. So that's what that's for, and that's what I'm doing there. One of the improvements they've done with the ACE unit is they have put these buffer guides in for the spools so that the spools don't come out of alignment. That does help somewhat, but it doesn't eliminate, you know, this sort of stuff, so which can be a pain. I've had a couple of issues where I've had prints pause, or I've had the AI system, the supposable AI camera system, which is just up there. Oh, sorry, just, you can see it in there, just here. I had that where it didn't pick up the printing and it was just printing in thin air. So yeah, that's that. So let's pan around the back here, just in the studio. It's a bit of a mess. You can see we've got our buffer at the back feeding our PDFE tubes out. You've got your input for your secondary ACE unit if you want that. Then you can see we've got our PDFE tube inlet, and then we've got our splitter for our 4-way PDFE tube, connection port, and I printed this little bad boy for our bucket for our poop, and that goes in there. You've got your exhaust fan in there, and your coolant fan just on the side there. So that's that one there. Just the lighting for you guys, a little bit better. So that's that one there. So yeah, that's how it goes in through the top. So that's that one. So as far as pros and cons, let's go through it. We've gone on the screen, we've touched base over the ACE unit, and we've gone over the specs of the machine. We've gone through the prints and the filaments and the tolerance. So let's talk about what I've found out, what I've solved and what I haven't. And yeah, so let me pop this on the rack and I'll be right back. All right, so there you have it. So we've had a bit of a walk around. We've gone over the ACE unit and then the Core XY printer, so the Kobra S1. So let's talk about the positives and the negatives outside of the specs and the prints. Overall, I've found with the prints, once I tuned my own profiles with the slicer, I was fairly impressed with the print quality. Although, like I said, it does have a stainless block style hot end heatsink, and that does include a small PDFE tube, which in my experience and from what I've dealt with in the past with other printers, which I have seen a little bit of, is heat creep and the ability for the nozzle to stabilize the temperature of the filament being extruded. And that I've noticed during printing with the fluctuation of the filament temperature, the inconsistencies of the layer flow, that's more than likely probably why as well they've decreased the flow rate of the hot end to around 17, whereas other printers in the same category are around 19 to 23. That said, as far as the total printing time in comparison to other printers, not a huge difference. You're talking maybe 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes either way. I did do a couple of comparison prints where I loaded them through Orca Slicer as a comparison, and there was basically between, you know, some were 3 minutes, some were 7, and close to 10, 9.5 minutes in print time. And some of that has also to do with the way the print head aligns itself and primes the hot end prior to printing, regardless of whether you're printing in single or multicolor. So that's something that could possibly be improved within the slicer and the operating firmware, potentially. So let's go through a list of stuff. Like I said, this is honest and raw. If you don't like it and you don't like waiting for the specs and all the flash editing, well, then this channel is not for you, so you can move on. If you've made it this far, I assume that you prefer this style. So like me, I like honesty and don't like to edit stuff and prefer to give you the raw truth. So like I said, that's with the hot end and the heat creep and the PDFE tube. What else have we got? We've covered the camera, the linear rails. The rear rollers on the ACE unit, I feel a little bit light and a little bit small. That's the reason why I've reprinted these rollers at ABS. They're a little bit bigger, and what that's going to do is give it more retraction of the filament roll, enabling less loose respooling. And then on top of that, I'll just start off for a second and adding these little tubes here, which I'll walk up and bring to the front of the camera, which I'll put a link to if we can get a bit of a, there you go. So they're going to be inserted at the top, feeding the tubing, the filament back in out of the tubing, which will also help with the realignment of that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that fixes that. By all accounts and reports and comments and reviews on that print and setup, it does help a lot of the spaghetti and respooling issues. The LCD screen, like I said, that's flawless. I love that. This also, like I said, folds down and is adjustable, so that's really handy. I do like that. Like I said, there's no ceramic hot end. Now, why is that important? Well, it's been shown and through testing, and other printers and other companies have adopted this as well, that with the ceramic hot end, it is unable to regulate the printing temperature of the filament as it's melting through the extruder a lot more efficiently and a lot quicker thus enabling printer temp changes and regulation of the print temperature to be a lot more accurate and a lot better during printing. It also increases the melt flow rate, as long as the extruder is up to it, as far as the gear extrude drive, and that increases the flow rate, thus increasing the print speed ability and ability to print better quality. So that's something to consider as well. I haven't had any jams, so the actual dual guide gear system extrusion in this printer, which I haven't done a lot of research on, I'll be honest, but that said, I have not had a single blockage. Now, like I said, I've printed a PETG, ABS, PLA+, PLA, and I think I ran some Flexi Flash Forge through that as well, and no issue, all through the PDF tube, not direct fed either. So one thing I will say is if you are going to adjust the slicer settings for retraction, do not go above 55, 60. You probably will have some issues there. All I did to mitigate filament retraction and stringing was just temperature and speed. So that's all I did. As for movements, like I said, it is a little bit slower in that it runs at around 10,000 acceleration on the printing and travel. I found that I had to lower the acceleration a little bit on the initial top surface and start printing because it was a little bit high as well. One thing that is really important that I think Anycubic can change, basically just with the firmware upgrade, is it really needs to have a Z offset adjustment on the printer. Because it doesn't have open source clipper, you can't adjust it remotely via the app itself or on the PC or via mainsail or fluid. So that's a big thing because obviously you can see I had some bed issues there. I did a half print build plate and I'll bring it out of here. I was that unhappy with it. I threw it in the bin and that was there. So that in itself, it's not a deal breaker because it can be adjusted manually. So I went into the slicer, I went into the printer settings and edited Z offset and added 0.6. But then that's going to affect the front of the build plate as well. So I'm going to have to shim that to correct that, or I might just reach out to Anycubic and they might send a new bed. Not sure. I'll cross that bridge when it comes to it, probably next week. So that's something they probably look at fixing as well. And the other thing is too that I noticed when sending prints from the Anycubic Next slicer, it wants to send the prints straight away to start. There's no preload. So the memory, I'm not sure why they've done this, but they've enabled you to be able to send prints to their cloud, which the security is, some people have a problem with that, some people won't. Not a huge thing for me, but I did find a glitch where I was, because I couldn't send a print I had a print going in the Kobra and I wanted the S1 and I wanted to print, I had another print ready to go. So I wanted to send that print to the printer, wouldn't let me. It'll only allow you to send the prints remotely when they're ready to start. So I couldn't have one on the screen, so as soon as it finished I could start the next one. Couldn't do it, wouldn't allow it. The only way you can do that is by sending it to the cloud. The problem I had was when I sent it to the cloud and went to revert back to remote printing, completely locked me out. So that was something I had to contact Anycubic about. They had some server issues. I reset it, had to start again, problem solved. Haven't actually, funny enough, it fixed the printer, but I didn't then continue loading files through the cloud because I didn't want to have the same process again. So I'm not sure if that's just user bad luck or a server issue, but I'd like to see that change potentially because I know that a lot of people, when they're printing stuff, they want to be able to send their prints to the printer and not just start them shouldn't have to be forced into, okay, you want to send your print to the printer and then, you can't send it because it's printing, bad luck, you don't want to start it now, you can't send it to the printer, you have to do it when you want to start it. So that's a bit of a pain. So that's a couple of different things. Look, it's personal preference for me. I know if you're printing stuff and you've got something else you're working on, you want to print, when you're sitting there doing it, you want to be able to send it to the printer so that you can just keep printing. But unfortunately, it's not the case. You have to wait until it's finished or send it to the cloud. That's your option. You can opt out for the cloud service if you want. It's entirely up to yourself. So what do I think of the printer as a whole? For the price point, if you compare it to, say, a P1P or P1S or a Creality K1, I do have a K1 with a CFS upgrade. I'm going to be doing a video on that next. And then I'm going to do a comparison between the Anycubic S1 and the Creality K1 Max with the CFS multicolor combo print upgrade. The CFS doesn't come as a heating unit, multicolor spool unit. So that is a plus for the Ace combo, being that this is a heating unit as well as a multicolor combo is quite beneficial. As some of you may know, I've used other multicolor combos in the past, including just recently for the last few months, the CoPrint Chromaset system. And that's a unique system in itself. Obviously, that's an open spool system. I also have the ADX from FlashForge multicolor 4-color printer upcoming as well, so I'll be doing a review on that. What do I think in comparison to all those printers versus the S1? Well, I think the S1, if you are happy with, well, how to say this, the printer itself works flawlessly. Like I said, the acceleration limits are a little bit lower than, say, your P1S from Bamboo or your Creality or FlashForge or Elegoo, Centauri. The print quality is great. Obviously, I've had a couple issues with the build plate. Not huge. I've had no breakaways, so I've had no print failures as far as the filament not sticking to the bed. That has been probably more than fantastic, I have to say. So I've had no print failures. I've had 2 spool errors for spaghetti, and that's why I'm going to be upgrading the rear rollers and the filament feed tubes with PDFE. And from what I've been told, that pretty much eliminates and solves that problem. So outside of that, I haven't been able to find any faults. Would I recommend this for the money? I would for the money. I mean, if you want a multicolor printer where you can expand it to 8 colors and it's all inclusive filament feeding, filament heating as well, and can print all materials, including nylon and carbon fiber, PC, PA, like I said, up to 320 degrees, all enclosed, carbon filter, side exhaust fan, auxiliary fan, filament hub, you know, LCD touchscreen. You can't really go wrong. I mean, for $949 AUD, what that is in US, I'm not sure, but that is standalone on its own. I don't think you can really compete with that for what you get. So would I recommend it? Yes, I definitely would. If you stuck to, for instance, with the ACE unit, if you stuck to the Anycubic filament rolls or even just other rolls from Creality or Bamboo or Polymaker, you may or may not have a problem. Like I said, I've still had some loose retractions on the spools with the plastic spools. So yeah, it doesn't seem to like the cardboard spools, which I'll be honest, most filament systems don't. But like I said, you can fix that with a roller upgrade and some new PDFE feed tubes. So that's quite good in itself. So yeah, as far as that's concerned, that's that with the Kobra S1. If you've got any questions or you'd like to ask anything else, I'll probably be doing some videos on some prints as well, some shorts videos that'll showcase what the print quality is like on some bigger multicolor prints, and you'll be able to see more of that. And yeah, so comments below if you liked the video. Like I said, this is going to be sent out raw, no editing, no filter. So yeah, if you want to see more of this style of video, let me know in the comments below. I'd like to thank Anycubic again for sending this out with no pressure, no obligation. And click the links in below. I'll pop the links down for the top lid latch and the guides as well for the ACE unit if you're interested in that. And I'll pop the link down as well for promo code. I'm not sure on the discount on that, but I'll have a look online and go through that and see what my promo code is. I think it's about 10 to 20% off, I think, maybe at least 10% minimum. So you can get 10% off on top of the sale price. So that's a little bit of a deal for you. So anyway, I'm Chris. I hope you enjoyed the 3D print review today. And look forward to doing more. Check out my other videos in the coming weeks. And we'll see you then.